Imagine a parallel financial system. It's hidden in plain sight, really. And it's funneling anywhere from, $800 billion to $2 trillion globally every year.
Yeah, it's a staggering amount. We're talking 2 to 5% of global GDP just vanished into this shadow system.
Okay, let's unpack this, because this isn't just, finance jargon. This is dirty money. It's the cash that fuels crime, corruption. It distorts whole economies.
Absolutely. Think drug trafficking, human smuggling, terrorism, bribery. It's the lifeblood. Yeah. And it flows through the same veins as legitimate money, which is part of the problem.
So that's what we're diving into today.
Exactly. What's so fascinating, I think, is how this basic human urge hiding wealth has morphed. It's become this super sophisticated global industry. And, big banks, they're often involved, sometimes surprisingly, sometimes, complicitly.
Right. So what's our mission here?
We want to trace it all. From ancient tax dodging right up to the modern digital scams. We'll look at the huge scandals, the methods, and this constant cat and mouse game between the launderers and the authorities.
So by the end, you listening should have a real handle on this. Ancient roots to the digital frontier, yeah.
That's the plan. Surprising facts, real-world impact, a shortcut to understanding a massive global challenge.
All right, let's jump in. Hiding wealth. It's not new, is it?
Not at all. Go back to ancient Greece.
Okay.
Wealthy Athenians faced these things called liturgies, basically direct taxes for public stuff, like funding a warship or a festival.
And they didn't want to pay. Shocker.
Well, some tried to hide their true worth. They'd assign assets to someone else, a nominal owner, or use these private financial intermediaries, basically early bankers who offered total confidentiality, hiding the stash.
So ancient offshore accounts, kind of.
In a way, yeah. And you see similar things elsewhere. Roman Empire, Gupta Empire in India.
Yeah.
Laws against hiding wealth. It shows this timeless awareness. People knew even then that hiding wealth messes things up for society.
Okay, fast forward a bit. Imperial China.
Right. They had something called fei qin, flying money.
Flying money. Sounds cool.
It was pretty ingenious. A network of exchange notes. Merchants could move funds across huge distances.
Without lugging gold bars around.
Exactly. And with a minimal paper trail. Great for dodging taxes or, trading in forbidden goods.
And you mentioned this links to modern laundering.
Yeah, it's an early version of what we call placement, getting the money into the system and layering, making it hard to trace, moving it around.
Okay, so the term money laundering, that's more recent.
American, right.
Yep. Prohibition era, the 1920s, 30s.
Bootlegging, gambling.
All generating massive amounts of cash, untaxed cash. And the mob had a problem. Where did all this money come from? How do you explain it?
Enter Al Capone.
Right. His solution was, pretty basic by today's standards, but smart then. He and others bought businesses that handled a lot of cash. Laundromats are the famous example, hence the name.
So mix the dirty cash with the clean cash from washing clothes.
Exactly. Mingle it together before depositing it. Obscures the origin.
But Capone got done for tax evasion, not the violence. That's the key point. It proved financial trails, audits. That was the real weapon against organized crime, which of course pushed them to innovate again.
And that brings us to Meyer Lansky, the mob's accountant.
Lansky was shrewder. He saw the power of going offshore. Switzerland, precisely. Numbered bank accounts protected by really strong secrecy laws.
And he had another trick, didn't he? The loan back.
Yeah, the loan back. Simple but effective. You secretly deposit your dirty money in a foreign bank, maybe one you quietly control. Then that bank loans the same money back to you. Suddenly you have a legitimate source for the funds on paper. Clean.
It really is a cat and mouse game.
Always. State clamps down, criminals find a new way, state responds, criminals adapt again. It's a constant cycle.
And it's weird how recent the actual term is, money laundering. Watergate, 1973.
That's when it really hit the public consciousness, yeah.
But it wasn't even a specific federal crime in the U.S. until 1986.
Right. Driven mostly by the war on drugs, they needed a tool to seize assets.
Okay, so that's the history. How does it work today? You mentioned stages.
Yeah, the modern process is generally broken down into 3 stages. Placement, layering, and integration.
Placement first. Getting the money in.
Right. This is the riskiest stage for the criminal dealing with physical cash. They might use structuring, also called smurfing, breaking down large cash sums into smaller amounts.
Small enough to avoid suspicion. or reporting rules.
Exactly. Depositing them across many accounts, maybe many banks, to stay under the reporting thresholds, like the $10,000 limit in the U.S.
Or just smuggling bulk cash out.
That too. The main goal of placement is just converting that awkward physical cash into electronic form. Get it into the financial system somehow.
Okay, stage 2, layering.
This is where the real complexity comes in. Layering is all about confusing the trail, making it impossible, or at least very difficult, to follow the money back to its illegal source.
How do they do that?
Oh, lots of ways. Wiring funds through dozens of accounts, bouncing between different countries, using shell corporations, fake companies that exist only on paper.
Often in those offshore places we talked about.
Definitely. Offshore financial centers are key here. They also might buy and sell stocks, bonds, or other investments quickly, maybe use fake invoices or contracts to justify payments.
The goal is just complexity, noise.
Pretty much. Sever the link. Make the audit trail a nightmare.
And the final stage, integration.
Integration, the money's been washed, it looks clean. Now it needs to come back into the legitimate economy so the criminals can actually use it.
How does this happen? Buying stuff.
Often, yeah. Big ticket items. Luxury real estate, think fancy apartments in London or New York, yachts, private jets, expensive art. Or they might invest it back into legitimate businesses, injecting capital, maybe starting a new company.
And at that point, it looks just like any other money.
Exactly. Indistinguishable from legitimate wealth. The process is complete. It's quite a system they've refined.
So this whole structure that allows this parallel financial universe, how did it get built? You mentioned offshore financial centers, OFCs.
Right. Their rise in the 60s and 70s is a big part of it. It started, ironically, because major economies like the US and UK were tightening regulations at home.
Like taxes.
Taxes, yes, like the U.S. interest equalization tax in '63, and reserve requirements for banks, things like that. So suddenly there was this huge demand for places with low or zero taxes, minimal rules, easy setup.
And places like the Bahamas, Bermuda, Luxembourg stepped in.
They did. They saw an opportunity. This also helped create the Eurodollar market U.S. dollars held outside the U.S.
But what's really interesting is you said this wasn't some rogue accident.
Not entirely. It was, in many ways, an intentional byproduct of those onshore rules. U.S. regulators even allowed U.S. banks to set up offshore branches. These OFCs are basically, you could say, selling their sovereignty, offering legal and regulatory advantages that you can't get elsewhere, exploiting the differences between systems.
And initially, it was more about corporations saving tax legally.
Largely, yes. Facilitating legal tax avoidance, managing global finances more easily.
But then the criminals realized this setup was perfect for them, too.
Exactly. By the 80s, the secrecy and lack of strong oversight made OFCs ideal for laundering money from drug trafficking, corruption, you name it. The infrastructure built for tax planning anonymous shell companies, asset protection trusts, was tailor-made for crime, especially that crucial layering stage.
And the other pillar was secrecy, like Swiss banks.
Secrecy is the absolute cornerstone. Switzerland is the classic example. Their Banking Act of 1934 made it a crime for banks to reveal client information.
Which was originally about protecting assets from the Nazis, right?
This is the initial noble justification, yes. But it, along with Switzerland's neutrality, made it the go-to place for anyone wanting discretion.
Then came numbered accounts.
Numbered accounts in the 40s added another layer, made it G-man proof, as Lansky apparently called it. Now, global pressure has forced Switzerland and others to relax some rules, share more info, but that deep culture of discretion, it's still very powerful. It's their brand, in a way.
So this architecture, OFCs, secrecy, it set the stage for. Well, for some massive failures by big institutions, didn't it?
It really did. An era where, frankly, some banks seem to operate with impunity. And these scandals, they're not just isolated oopsies. They show systemic problems. Profit winning out over rules.
Let's talk about some landmarks then. BCCI, Bank of Credit and Commerce International.
BCCI, a classic. And terrifying. The key thing about BCCI, active in the 80s until its collapse in 91, it wasn't a good bank gone bad. It was designed from the ground up to be a criminal enterprise, structured as this incredibly complex corporate spider web specifically to dodge regulation by any single country.
And what did it do?
Oh, the list is long. Laundered billions for the Medellin drug cartel, financed terrorist groups like Abu Nidal, helped Pakistan get nuclear technology, bribery of officials in dozens of countries was just standard practice.
How'd they pull it off?
Shell corporations, nominee accounts where the real owner is hidden. They even secretly bought a major U.S. bank, First American Bank shares. using frontmen and loans from BCCI itself. Circular and illegal.
And the collapse.
Pretty dramatic. A big U.S. Customs undercover sting, Operation Sea Chase. An agent famously posed as a corrupt businessman, even staged a fake wedding to lure in bankers and dealers. When it fell apart, something like $20 billion was missing. It was called the largest bank fraud in world financial history at the time.
Wow. Okay, next up, HSBC. More recent, 2006, 2012. This wasn't a criminal bank from the start, right? This is a global giant.
Exactly. A huge respected name. But it became the preferred bank for Mexican drug cartels like Sinaloa, and also states under sanction like Iran.
How much money are we talking?
The investigation found at least $881 million in drug money laundered through their U.S. operations. It got so bad, apparently, that Mexican traffickers literally designed their cash drop boxes to fit the dimensions of HSBC teller windows.
Bold.
One drug lord supposedly boasted HSBC was the place to launder money. They also got caught stripping identifying information from wire transfers involving sanctioned countries like Iran, Libya, Sudan.
What went wrong inside the bank?
According to reports, it was a corporate culture fixated on growth, cutting costs, and seeing compliance as, well, a hindrance. Their anti-money laundering AML department was severely understaffed. They even classified Mexico, despite all the warnings, as standard risk. Willful blindness, essentially.
And the consequences. Fines. Jail time.
A huge fine, $1.92 billion. But critically, they got a deferred prosecution agreement, a DPA. Meaning the bank itself, and crucially, its executives, avoided criminal charges, as long as they cleaned up their act for a few years.
Ah, the too big to jail situation.
Precisely. The Attorney General at the time, Eric Holder, even admitted that the sheer size and interconnectedness of HSBC made prosecutors worry about the negative impact on the national economy if they pursued criminal charges. That caused a huge outcry.
Okay, another huge one. 1MDB and Goldman Sachs, 2009, 2015.
1MDB is just breathtaking. Pure kleptocracy theft by rulers. About $4.5 billion looted from a Malaysian state development fund.
By Malaysian officials.
High-level officials, led by the then Prime Minister Najib Razak and this shadowy financier Jay-Ho Low, and Goldman Sachs. The U.S. Justice Department said their senior people were direct and willing participants.
Now, how did Goldman fit in?
Goldman underwrote $6.5 billion worth of bonds for 1MDB. Basically helped them raise money, but they charged absolutely enormous fees, around $600 million, which was like 200 times the normal rate for that kind of work, a massive red flag in itself.
And the money raised.
Over $2.7 billion was siphoned off almost immediately, diverted through shell companies controlled by Lowe and his associates.
And spent on...
Unbelievable luxury. High-end real estate in New York, LA, a $260 million super yacht, a private jet, Picasso, Monet paintings, throwing insanely lavish parties.
Didn't they fund the movie?
They did. Ironically, The Wolf of Wall Street, about financial crime, and around $700 million allegedly landed directly in Prime Minister Najib's personal bank accounts.
And Goldman's defense.
They tried the rogue employees line, but investigators found lots of internal warnings about Jay-Ho Low were ignored. Plus, a key Goldman partner pleaded guilty, admitting he conspired, and crucially said it was very much in line with the culture of Goldman Sachs to hide unflattering facts. That was damaging.
Okay, one more. Danske Bank, the Estonian laundromat.
Maybe the biggest of them all, in terms of sheer volume. We're talking potentially $200 billion. That's about $230 billion in suspicious transactions flowing through one tiny branch in Estonia.
200 billion euros through one branch. How?
Danske, Denmark's biggest bank, bought a Finnish bank called Sampo, which had this Estonian branch. The branch kept using its old IT system. Most documents were in Estonian or Russian. Basically, it was siloed off from proper oversight from Copenhagen.
And it became a magnet for dirty money.
A huge magnet, especially for shell companies registered in the UK or offshore, but funneling money from Russia and other former Soviet states. High risk written all over it.
Were there warnings?
Oh, yes. A whistleblower inside the Estonian branch warned senior management back in 2013. Specifically mentioned funds linked to Putin's family and the Russian FSB. JP Morgan Chase, which handled Danske's dollar transactions, cut ties in 2013 over concerns. Estonian regulators found massive violations in 2014.
But Danske's leadership didn't act.
Reports suggest they were slow, reluctant. The board seemed more focused on the branch's amazing profitability than the glaring risks. Eventually, the CEO resigned, arrests were made. Tragically, the former head of the Estonian branch, who became a key witness, was found dead, officially ruled as suicide.
Looking across these cases, BCCI, HSBC, Goldman, Danske. What's the pattern?
It's not just a few bad apples. It really does look like a recurring corporate culture of willful blindness, where the potential for huge profits consistently seem to outweigh compliance duties and the sheer complexity of modern global banking. It often gives senior executives plausible deniability. I didn't know. Makes holding individuals truly accountable incredibly hard.
So let's connect this back to the listener. Why should you care about these complex, sometimes faraway financial scandals? Is it just rich people stealing from rich people?
Absolutely not. This is far from a victimless crime. Dirty money acts like a corrosive acid. It eats away at economic stability, it damages trust, it distorts markets.
How does it distort things?
Well, laundered money doesn't usually go into the most productive investments for an economy. It often flows into assets chosen for their ability to hide value or origin. Luxury real estate is a prime example.
Driving up prices.
Exactly. Think London, New York, Vancouver. Huge inflows of questionable money have artificially inflated property prices, making housing unaffordable for ordinary people living and working there. It misallocates capital away from, say, building new factories or funding R&D.
And what about poorer countries?
That's where illicit financial flows, or IFFs, are devastating. Hundreds of billions drained out of developing economies every year through corruption, tax evasion, and laundering. Money that could have built schools, hospitals, roads.
It keeps countries poor.
It actively hinders development, perpetuates poverty, and it costs governments globally an estimated $600 billion a year just in lost tax revenue. That's massive.
And it affects legitimate businesses too.
Definitely. Criminal front companies, set up just to launder money, can operate at a loss. They don't need to make a profit from the business itself, so they can undercut legitimate competitors, drive them out of business. Economic power shifts from honest entrepreneurs to criminal syndicates. In extreme cases, it can lead to a virtual takeover of legitimate government.
And underpinning all this, it fuels the actual crimes, right?
It's the essential lubricant. Without money laundering, large-scale organized crime, drug trafficking, human smuggling, arms dealing, financing terrorism becomes much, much harder. The social costs of those crimes are immense.
And the final cost.
That might be the most insidious. These repeated scandals, the perception of too big to jail, they shatter public confidence in the financial system, even in government. Surveys show big drops in faith. It feeds that narrative that the whole system is rigged for the elites. That fuels political polarization, maybe even populism. It undermines the idea of equal justice.
Okay, so the damage is clear. How has the world tried to fight back? You called it an arms race.
It really is, and mostly reactive. A problem blows up, regulators scramble to plug the gap. Necessity drives the changes.
Where did it start, regulation-wise?
In the U.S., the big foundational law was the Bank Secrecy Act, the BSA, way back in 1970.
What did that do?
It established basic record-keeping rules for banks and, crucially, reporting requirements. The main one was the Currency Transaction Report, or CTR, for any cash transaction over $10,000. This essentially made banks the front line, deputized them to watch for suspicious activity.
Then BCCI blew up in '91. That must have triggered changes.
Huge wake-up call globally. In the U.S., it led to laws like the Anuncio-Wiley Act in '92, and this introduced probably the single most important AML tool today, the Suspicious Activity Report, or SAR.
How's that different from the CTR?
The CTR is automatic for large cash deals. The SAR requires banks to proactively file a report on any transaction, regardless of amount, if they suspect it might involve illicit funds or violate the BSA. It's about suspicion, not just cash thresholds. Puts the onus on the bank's judgment.
And internationally.
The G7 countries had already set up the Financial Action Task Force, FATF, in 1989, partly in response to drug money concerns. FATF created the 40 recommendations, basically, the global rulebook for AML and counter-terrorist financing. They don't have direct enforcement power, but...
They can name and shame.
Exactly. Their gray lists and blacklists of non-compliant countries carry real weight. It pressures governments to reform their laws to meet FATF standards. It's been quite effective in spreading AML rules globally.
Then 9/11 happened.
A massive shift. The focus expanded dramatically to countering the financing of terrorism, CFT. The USA Patriot Act in 2001 brought in sweeping changes, mandated formal AML programs within banks, strengthened Know Your Customer or KYC rules verifying who your clients really are. It also explicitly prohibited U.S. banks dealing with shell banks, banks with no physical presence anywhere.
And the more recent scandals, Danske, 1MDB, more reforms.
They exposed ongoing weaknesses. Danske highlighted huge gaps in cross-border supervision within the EU, leading to serious talk about finally creating a central EU AML authority. 1MDB put the spotlight back on senior management accountability and the need for much tougher due diligence on politically exposed persons, or PPs, government officials, their families, close associates, people who pose a higher risk for corruption.
It sounds like a constant tightening of the screws.
It is. But there's that inherent paradox we keep circling back to. Banks are supposed to make money, lots of it, but they're also supposed to be the gatekeepers, deputized by the state to stop crime. That's a fundamental conflict of interest, and it fuels this cycle. Scandal, outrage, reactive reform. Things quiet down, complacency creeps in, next scandal. And with each turn, financial privacy tends to erode a bit more.
So where does this battle stand now? We're in the digital age. Has that changed the game?
Profoundly. It's a whole new frontier. Criminals are adapting incredibly fast, as always, but there are also powerful new tools for fighting back.
Is the old problem still there, though, despite all the rules?
Oh, absolutely. Systemic failures keep happening. Just look at 2024. TD Bank got hit with potentially $3.1 billion in fines for massive BSA failures, didn't file thousands of SARs, allegedly let fentanyl traffickers launder money for years.
$3 billion, wow.
Yeah. And others too, City National Bank, even fintech firms like Klarna faced big penalties. It shows the framework isn't foolproof. The incentives to cut corners or just being overwhelmed are still there.
And now, cryptocurrency. The digital Wild West.
That's been the biggest disruptor. Criminals saw the potential immediately. Decentralized, pseudonymous, not totally anonymous, but harder to track and borderless. Perfect for laundering.
How do they use it?
Several ways. There are mixers or tumblers, services that pool crypto from many users and mix it all up before sending it out, breaking the transaction chain. Then you have privacy coins like Monero or Zcash. They're engineered from the ground up to be untraceable, hiding sender, receiver, and amount. Much harder than Bitcoin.
What else?
Chain hopping, quickly swapping funds between different cryptocurrencies, maybe across different blockchains, adding layers of confusion. And DeFi decentralized finance platforms, many of them have weak or no know your customer checks, making them another avenue for layering illicit funds.
So what's the fundamental problem for regulators here?
Crypto challenges the whole system built around nation-states and regulated intermediaries like banks. How do you enforce rules when transactions can bypass banks entirely, cross borders instantly, and identities are obscured? Regulators are now focused on policing the on-ramps and off-ramps, the points where crypto is bought with or sold for traditional currency, mostly exchanges. And they're developing new forensic tools like blockchain analysis to try and follow the digital trail.
Are they having any success?
They're adapting. In the US, FinCEN declared crypto exchanges are money services businesses, so they have to follow BSA rules, file SARs, etc. And FATF pushed its members to implement the travel rule for crypto. It requires exchanges to collect and share information about the sender and receiver of crypto transfers over a certain threshold, just like with traditional wire transfers. It's trying to bring crypto into the existing framework.
Okay, so criminals have new digital tools. What about the defenders? Is tech helping them too?
Absolutely. This is the other side of the coin. AI and machine learning are starting to revolutionize AML compliance.
How so? Better than the old systems?
Much better. The old systems were mostly rules-based. If transaction X happens, flag it. They generated a ton of false positives alerts on perfectly legitimate activity. Banks wasted huge resources investigating noise.
And AI is smarter.
Potentially, yes. Machine learning models can analyze massive amounts of data transaction patterns, network links, customer behavior, and learn what normal looks like for a specific customer or group. Then they can spot genuine anomalies, subtle deviations, complex hidden patterns that those simple rules would miss. Things like a sudden change in where money is going or connections to risky entities appearing indirectly.
What are the results?
Pretty impressive claims. Some studies suggest AI can improve detection rates by up to 40%, while slashing false positives by 60% or more.
That frees up human experts to focus on real risks.
Exactly. AI is also automating routine tasks like KYC checks, customer screening, due diligence. Tech giants like Google are even selling specific AI products to banks now.
Sounds promising. Any downsides?
There's a big potential issue, the compliance divide. Big global banks can afford to invest heavily in sophisticated AI systems. Smaller banks, credit unions, maybe fintechs in developing countries, they might not have the resources. So the risk is that illicit money just migrates. It flows away from the well-defended large institutions towards the smaller, less protected ones. That could create a new kind of systemic vulnerability. Making sure everyone can access effective tools is going to be crucial.
So, looking back at this whole journey, ancient Greece, avoiding taxes, Al Capone's laundromats, offshore havens, massive bank scandals, now crypto and AI.
It's definitely a dynamic, complex cycle. Innovation on one side, reaction on the other, seemingly endless.
And that tension you mentioned keeps coming up. Banks wanting profit, but also being asked to police the system.
That inherent conflict seems baked in. You hear people call AML an unwinnable war in the sense that you'll likely never stop all dirty money. But the effort matters hugely. The vigor of the fight really determines the integrity, the stability of the whole global financial system.
And this deep dive really highlights something else too, this constant push for more security, more tracking. It has steadily chipped away at financial privacy over the decades.
That's the trade-off, isn't it?
Yeah. So as technology keeps accelerating, for both the criminals and the regulators, where do you think that line gets drawn next? The one between our individual financial freedom and the collective need for a clean, stable financial system.
That's the big question going forward, a really crucial balance to keep exploring.